gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Welcome to LMDtv. I'm Ashwini Vethakan. Joining us this week on Talking Business is the Chief Executive Officer for Standard Chartered Sri Lanka, Bingamal Thevaratantri. Welcome to the show, Bingamal. It's good to have you here with us.
Thanks, Ashwini. Thanks for having me.
Now, Bingamal, if we may begin with the most recent news on the currency front, how do you view the managed float of the rupee to the US dollar benchmarked by the monetary authorities?
Yeah, so Ashwini, first of all, it's not a controlled float. It's more of a free float. We already seen the currency going to something like a 260 in the last week. So I think these are very different economic conditions that we are in, and we need different level of thinking. So I think some level of intervention is critical because we cannot let the currency go beyond a certain point. Of course, there will be a lot of other benefits, some amount of controls on the imports. The importers will now slow down and the worker remittances will go up, and more export proceeds will come. So those are the expectations. At this point, we are watching this space carefully.
And would you expect more of the same this year? And where then would the value of the rupee head?
Very difficult, Ashwini, to predict the rupee rate at this point. The ideal rate could be somewhere around 240, 250. We have to watch this space for next 30 to 45 days. The critical part is to get the worker remittances up as a result of this and more conversions on the exporters. So at this point, by looking at the numbers, we cannot really predict. But we've seen markets like Turkey floated the currency without any intervention. Within 3 months, it has depreciated by about 100%, but different economic conditions. But that's why I said some level of intervention, if it goes above a certain level, is critical.
Now, Bingamal, could you outline the main risks faced by the bank at this time?
Yeah, so actually the first thing is with this currency depreciation, I think some of the banks had a net open position. Yeah, of course, the pending transactions that they've done and they were holding positions. So I think that was a huge risk for the bank, and I think the banks are in the process of clearing that. The other one would be with the the low reserves, and we are on a day-to-day basis still struggling to collect the dollars. So typical import-driven clients will be an area of focus in terms of risk management. So we can see very clearly typical import clients into non-essential will be a risk area. The other area is the tourism. Now, tourism moratorium is coming to an end. With that, we believe that most of the clients have recovered, but of course, there will be a certain portfolio that will go into a overdue situation. So we have to carefully watch these 2-3 areas plus the international sovereign bonds held by some of the banks. So if there's some amount of debt restructuring and haircuts, some banks might get impacted.
And how are banks transforming themselves to become more inclusive?
Yeah, I think we all play to our strength. Different banks do different things. Some banks very carefully look at the gaps in the market and they go more into a particular segment like SME or into microfinance or into different areas, like different industries. But I don't think we can all do the same thing. But in terms of area of focus, I think we should support more industries. We should support more SMEs. At Standard Chartered Bank, we have come up with a team, we call it lifted participation, and we really want to make sure that the larger population, unbankable population, brought into the banking system. So I believe that it will continue to be like that. And for an example, again coming back to the Standard Chartered Bank story, our role here is pretty much managing the large corporates and taking them to the network and bringing network clients to Standard Chartered Bank. Of course, helping the banks in Sri Lanka with the largest financial institution service provider in Sri Lanka. So that's our core strength. Similarly, each bank got their core strength and their strategy around that segment.
Now, a recent World Economic Forum report talks about how decentralized finance will transform the SME sector. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, the larger issue is we have 7 billion people in this world and only 2 billion got access to formal banking. So there is a large unbanked population. That's why I said previously also Standard came up with this lifting participation team solely looking at how markets, and we realize that there's so much that we can do to grab that. Now, DeFi as a tool to enter into that space is definitely a a choice. The challenge with DeFi is actually it's very transparent. It's fair. It's efficient. It's fast. But the challenge would be with DeFi, different regulators behave differently, and there are complex tools such as cryptos and blockchain. So if the regulators are not aligned, you will not get the maximum benefit. I think eventually we will get there, but I see DeFi as a huge opportunity for the SMEs in the future.
And on that note, we'll be going in for a short break.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do, because you are truly delicate, protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With Sayalac Care, the only wood coating that truly protects you. Sayalac Wood Coatings from JAT.
Welcome back to the show as we continue our conversation with the Chief Executive Officer of Standard Chartered Sri Lanka, Bingumal Thevarathanthri. Now, Bingumal, in your opinion, what is the risk appetite of Sri Lanka's banking sector, particularly in the context of the current economic and Forex crises?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of appetite. There's a double-digit credit growth in the private sector. But the focus will definitely shift towards the exporters. We can clearly see banks focusing more and more on the exporters, more and more on the industries where you can get dollars. So less focus on the industries where you're driving consumerism. It's a typical import-led business. But there's a lot of appetite for risk at this point, still at this point with all these challenges. And also tourism sector. And we believe the tourism sector has bounced back pretty well. So we can clearly see the industry supporting the tourism sector as well.
Now, with the rise in digital transactions, what measures are in place to ensure the prevention of online fraud?
Yeah, so the online space has really taken up during the pandemic. I think pretty much all the banks offering retail and corporate now got some kind of a platform, be it mobile, be it internet. So with that, what has happened is banks also have gone into PCI DSS and multi-factor authentication, etc. As Standard Chartered Bank, we have invested heavily in the last couple of years, globally as well as locally, in terms of managing cyber risk. Coming again, looking at the industry, I think what is missing is a common security operations center. So that is under discussion at this point. I think we need a common security operations center for us to log issues and rate issues and discuss issues. That is what is missing right now. But every bank got some kind of a monitoring system, and it is an evolving thing, and at some point we'll have it for the industry.
How well has the banking sector adapted omni-channel banking?
So actually, omni-channel is the way to go. Though we saw a huge digital penetration during the pandemic, a lot of research say that for complex transactions, clients prefer a physical interaction. That is also to build trust for a complex transaction like a mortgage or a wealth product. On the retail side, of course, I'm talking the retail space mainly. They prefer to meet the banker at some place. Now the premises, the place you meet has changed. What I would see is a hybrid working arrangement in future, local banks and global banks both, but you'll have less touch points in terms of physical presence. The challenge for some of the banks would be you already have brick and mortar. You already invested in the last 20 years in brick and mortar. How do you unwind that? How do you reduce that brick and mortar network and put that money into other channels? So that's one big challenge we see across our markets for all the global and the local banks. But the future will be omni-channel. You will have touch point, you will have branches, some form of branch, but clients will transact with both channels.
And what are the top trends in commercial banking to look out for?
So actually, there are a couple of trends that we all see and we're working on. So as Standard Chartered Bank, we've seen sustainable finance as a huge opportunity and also responsibility on us because we are driving an agenda to drive net zero. So for the local banks as well, some of the banks have already got in. There's some amount of framework in all the banks. So sustainable finance is all about moving your brown industries to green industries. If you can move part of your portfolios into sustainable finance, you get a lot of funding from different agencies. So that's a big opportunity that you have. Then the women-led businesses, I think there is support at microfinance level, but we can do more in that space. The other one for Sri Lanka would be agri and manufacturing, so local manufacturing, because now with all these import embargoes, you will see all sorts of new industries emerging, and there'll be existing corporates going into local manufacturing. I think that's another trend that we see, and we should rally and support.
Our final question for this evening, Bingo Mal. What are your expectations for Sri Lanka's economic growth in the next 10 months or so?
Yeah, it's a difficult terrain, Ashwin, in the next 10 months. The other thing is, I think we couldn't really take the advantage of the vaccination drive. We had in my view, a slow, below the potential first quarter, in my view. Because we also had power cuts, we still have, and there was energy crisis as well. So I'm sure there is some amount of growth that slowed down. It all depends how we manage the July settlements and how we manage the entire debt pile and have a consistent supply on energy and power running up to the next 9-10 months will be critical for the growth. At this point, we are still forecasting a 4% growth for Sri Lanka. We are cautiously optimistic.
Well, this has been an interesting conversation. Thank you for this quick update into the banking sector, Bingo Mal.
Thanks, Ashwin, for having me. Thank you.
Coming up, we have the latest updates from Sri Lanka's burning issues. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show, and here's the latest updates from Sri Lanka's burning issues. The shift in anxiety in the new year from the dreaded coronavirus to the equally gut-wrenching economic strife continues to hold sway, as there's seemingly little, if any, respite from the hardships caused by a faltering economy. In February, 72% of respondents, from 75% in the preceding month, to the exclusive LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index or BCI survey cited the impact of inflation as the most pressing issue for business in Sri Lanka today. So COVID-19, which was top of the mind for most of last year, is still in second place, with 62% of those consulted by the pollsters highlighting the virus as a concern compared to January's 57%. It could well be that the uptick is due to the recent Omicron-induced spike in cases and fatalities. Concerns about bribery and corruption also remain on the radar, with 36% versus 37% in January of the survey sample saying it is a pressing issue for business. As for the most pressing national issue facing the nation, the economy remains the overwhelming concern, according to a whopping 84% of survey participants, compared to slightly under 3/4 in the prior month. Likewise, the pandemic is also among the major worries, with nearly 6 in 10 business people citing it is a burning issue for the second consecutive month. And lastly, there's the shameful spectre of poverty made worse by the state of the economy. It continues to feature as a pressing issue for the country, as nearly a quarter of respondents consider the plight of the poor to be worrisome. The cost of living index edges down following last month's all-time high, when the barometer of cost of living vis-a-vis the household burden jumped to an all-time high in December. The signs were ominous, and in many ways they still are, except for a little respite in that the one-of-a-kind Pepper Cube Cost of Living Index, or CLI, nudged down from 90.5 to 88.3 points in January. However, the CLI is still the second highest on record, which isn't surprising given the state of play on the ground. Meanwhile, the Colombo Consumer Price Index, or CCPI, shot up from 12.1% to 14.2% year-on-year in January. Of survey participants consulted by Pepper Cube in January, 94%, down from 97% in December, say the cost of living of their families has increased moderately or otherwise over the last 12 months. As for the cost of living in the next 12 months is concerned, slightly over 90%, that is 91% to be precise, of those polled say that they expect an escalation of their household expenditure, which is only marginally less than 93% that said so in the previous month. So what do people say about the likelihood of hardships ahead in terms of their capacity to purchase non-food goods and services by considering their cost of living, economic status and the ability to save in the coming 12 months? The outcome is more or less the same as they were asked a month ago, with 76% versus 77% stating they will not have a chance at all or not have a chance. On a more positive note, the second edition of Essence magazine, LMD's special publication released in honor of International Women's Day, features Sri Lanka's A-list women in business. From Dr. Shanika Alsakularatna, who said, train your mind to love yourself, accept yourself so much that other people's opinions don't matter and will not stop you from reaching your dreams. You also have to know which battle to pick and which to let go. Do what you do with so much passion that it doesn't feel like a job. To Avanti Colombage, who said glass ceilings aren't just meant to be broken but shattered. A combination of determination, resilience and hard work will help us get there. Flip through the magazine and find out what the rest of the A-listers think holds the key to breaking the glass ceiling as far as women in business go. And that's all the time we have for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.